What if we told you that we could like peek into someone's childhood and kind of get a glimpse of the choices they might make as a teenager?
Hmm.
That's kind of what this fascinating study from JAMA Network Open is hinting at.
Yeah.
And it uses data from the massive ABCD study,
Wow.
the adolescent brain and cognitive development study that's been following like over 10,000 kids for years.
Right.
We're talking brain structure in late childhood and how it might connect to substance use before the age of 15.
Yeah, it's a question that is like really at the forefront of research right now.
Mm-hmm.
We know substance use is a huge public health issue,
Sure.
and the earlier someone starts, the greater the risk of problems later on.
Right. Early initiation is a big red flag. So we're not just talking about like a little experimentation here, right?
Right.
We're trying to understand like what might make some kids more susceptible to this.
Exactly. And, there's already research showing differences in the brains of people with substance use disorders.
Mm.
But the big question has always been, did the substance use cause those differences? Or were they already there?
It's the classic chicken or the egg problem.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's where this new study gets really interesting.
Okay.
They looked at brain scans from kids around like 9 or 10 years old
Uh-huh.
before they'd started using any substances.
Oh, wow. So that's key because it helps address that chicken or the egg dilemma.
Right.
And what's more, the ABCD study is massive, over 10,000 kids.
Yeah.
That gives us a much larger, more diverse sample to really explore this link between brain structure and substance use.
Okay, so walk us through the study itself. Like, what did they actually do?
So they use MRI scans to get a detailed look at the kids' brains.
Okay.
Then they followed up with the kids and their parents for 3 years, conducting interviews to track any substance use.
Mm-hmm.
And they were thorough.
Wow.
They looked at alcohol, nicotine, cannabis, even other illicit substances.
So they were really trying to get like a comprehensive picture of what these kids were being exposed to.
Absolutely. And to isolate the connection between brain structure and substance use,
Mm-hmm.
they meticulously controlled for other factors that could be at play. These like age, sex, puberty, stage, family ties, even the type of MRI scanner used.
Wow, talk about thorough.
Yeah.
They really wanted to make sure they were seeing a true link. So what did they find?
Well, the kids who started using substances before 15 tended to have larger overall brain volumes, which was a bit surprising. And then in a specific part of the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for, making good decisions, resisting impulses, their cortex was thinner.
So imagine this is your brain, right? And this crucial area, almost like the brakes of your brain might be a bit weaker,
Yeah,
making it harder to say no to those temptations.
that's a great way to put it. And here's an unexpected twist.
Okay.
Some areas of their cortex in the temporal, occipital, and parietal lobes were actually thicker.
So some parts might be trying to overcompensate for the weaker area.
Yeah, potentially.
That's fascinating.
It definitely points to like a complex interplay happening during brain development.
Yeah.
And it's something that needs further research for sure.
Now, when we're talking about substance use in this age group, like, what was the most common substance?
Alcohol was the most prevalent, and the findings for alcohol use pretty much mirrored the overall findings. Larger brain volumes, thinner prefrontal cortex, thicker areas in those other lobes.
And what about nicotine and cannabis? Were the findings similar for those substances?
They were a bit less consistent, which suggests that more research is needed to understand how those substances might uniquely affect the developing brain.
It sounds like there's still a lot to learn.
For sure.
But, the researchers were clearly trying to be as rigorous as possible.
Right.
They even repeated their analysis, excluding kids who had already used substances at the start of the study.
Yeah, and the fact that the results mostly held up after that strengthens the idea that these brain differences weren't caused by early substance use. They were likely already there.
So are we talking about like a crystal ball here? Can we look at a 9-year-old's brain scan and predict whether they'll start using substances?
Not quite. The authors themselves acknowledge that these are small effects. They're not strong enough to predict an individual child's outcome. And we're definitely not at a point where this information is clinically useful.
So it's not a diagnosis or a guarantee, which is important to remember.
Right.
But even though we're not at the point of personalized predictions, this study does offer some pretty significant insights, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It suggests that there might be a biological predisposition to early substance. Use a vulnerability that's present even before any exposure to those substances.
This opens up like a whole new world of possibilities, right?
Yeah.
If we can identify these subtle brain differences early on, what could that mean for prevention and intervention strategies?
That's the big question, and it's one we'll be exploring as we dive deeper into the implications of this research.
Okay, then let's dive in. What are the potential applications of these findings, and what should we be thinking about as we move forward?
Imagine a future where we could, like, identify kids who might be more susceptible to substance use,
Yeah.
like early on, even before they're exposed to it.
Yeah.
This study suggests that possibility might not be that far off.
That would be incredible, right? To be able to offer targeted support and interventions before problems even arise. What a game changer.
Yeah,
But I also imagine there are a lot of complexities and challenges to consider.
you're absolutely right. It's not just about identifying those subtle brain differences, but also understanding how they interact with a child's environment, their experiences, their individual choices.
Right.
We're
Right.
talking about complex human beings, not just brain scans.
I guess what I'm getting at is this isn't about like labeling kids or creating self-fulfilling prophecies.
Exactly. It's about understanding and empowering them. Imagine a future where we can use this knowledge to tailor prevention programs, provide early interventions, and create supportive environments that help kids make healthier choices.
Okay, that's starting to paint a clearer picture. So we're not just talking about preventing addiction, we're talking about supporting overall well-being.
Precisely, we know early substance use can have a ripple effect across a young person's life, impacting their academic performance, their relationships, their mental health.
For sure.
Addressing those vulnerabilities early on can have a profound impact.
You mentioned earlier that some areas of the cortex were actually thicker in kids who later started using substances.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that a bit? It seemed counterintuitive.
That's one of the most intriguing aspects of the study. It suggests that some part of the brain might be working overtime, perhaps trying to compensate for weaker areas like that thinner prefrontal cortex we discussed.
So almost like some parts are trying to pick up the slack, but it's not quite enough to fully compensate.
That's one way to think about it, but
Yeah.
we need more research to really understand what's going on. It's possible that these thicker areas represent different developmental pathways in the brain, and we need to explore how those pathways might relate to substance use.
I'm also curious about the differences they found for various substances. Alcohol seemed to align with the overall findings, but nicotine and cannabis were less consistent. Any thoughts on why that might be?
It could be due to a number of factors. The sample size for those specific substances might have been smaller, or it's possible that those substances interact with the developing brain differently than alcohol.
I see. It sounds like this is just the tip of the iceberg, and there's still a lot to uncover.
Absolutely. And the ABCD study is ongoing. They'll be following these kids for years to come, which means we'll have the opportunity to see how those brain differences evolve over time and how they relate to various aspects of their lives.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like watching a movie unfold in real time, seeing how those early brain patterns might influence their choices and experiences as they grow up.
Exactly. And with each new wave of data, we'll gain a deeper understanding of the complex interplay between biology, environment, and behavior.
This study has really highlighted the power of brain science, hasn't it? It's giving us a glimpse into the hidden forces that shape our lives.
It's quite remarkable. And it's important to remember that this isn't just about substance use.
Right.
Understanding how the brain develops and how those early patterns might influence our choices has implications far beyond this specific study.
That's a great point. It makes you wonder what other predispositions or vulnerabilities might be subtly influenced by our brains early on.
It's a thought-provoking question,
Yeah.
and it underscores the importance of investing in research like the ABCD study. The more we understand about the brain, the better equipped we'll be to support children and create a healthier future for everyone.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I've learned so much about the complexities of brain development and the potential implications for preventing substance use.
It's been a pleasure to share this research with you, and I'm excited to see where this field goes in the future. I think we're just scratching the surface of what we can learn.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to bring it back to our listener.
Sure.
We've covered a lot of ground here, but what's the key takeaway for them? What should they be thinking about as they leave this deep dive?
Well, I think the key takeaway is that our brains hold like incredible insights into who we are and the choices we make.
Uh-huh.
And, this study highlights the fact that certain brain differences in childhood might make early substance use more likely.
So we're not just talking about willpower or, bad decisions.
Right.
There could be underlying biological factors at play.
Exactly. And understanding those factors can help us approach prevention and intervention with more empathy and effectiveness.
Mhm.
Instead of just saying, don't do drugs. We can start thinking about how to support those vulnerable areas of the brain, those breaks we talked about earlier.
Right, and that brings us back to the importance of early intervention. We've touched on this throughout our deep dive.
Yeah.
But why is it so crucial to address substance use in those early years before the age of 15?
Well, the earlier someone starts using substances, the greater the risk of developing more serious problems down the road, including addiction, But it's not just about preventing addiction. Early substance use can disrupt brain development during a critical period, leading to a cascade of negative consequences.
It's like those early years are a time of rapid construction in the brain,
Yeah,
and substance use can throw a wrench in the whole process.
that's a great analogy. We know that the adolescent brain is still developing, those crucial areas responsible for decision-making, impulse control, emotional regulation.
Yeah.
Introducing substances during this critical period can have a lasting impact on those developing circuits.
So early substance use isn't just a phase that kids grow out of.
Right.
It can have long-term consequences for their brain health and overall well-being.
Absolutely. And those consequences extend far beyond the individual.
Yeah.
Think about the impact on families, communities, and society as a whole. Addressing substance use early on can help prevent a ripple effect of negative outcomes.
We've talked about the potential for prevention and intervention, but I'm also curious about the future of treatment. Could this type of research eventually lead to personalized medicine for substance use disorders?
It's certainly a possibility. Imagine a future where we can use brain imaging and genetic testing to tailor treatment plans to an individual's unique brain structure and predispositions.
Wow.
We could identify those who might benefit from certain therapies, medications, or support systems.
That would be incredible, to move away from a one-size-fits-all approach and toward truly personalized care.
It's a fascinating frontier. We're still in the early stages of understanding how brain differences relate to substance use. But this research opens up exciting possibilities for the future of treatment and prevention.
Well, I, for one, am feeling hopeful. It's clear that brain science is giving us incredible tools to understand and address complex issues like substance use.
I agree, and the ABCD study is a game changer in this field. As they continue to follow these kids, we're going to learn so much more about how the brain develops, how those early patterns influence our lives, and how we can use that knowledge to create a healthier future.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today, what's the final message you want to leave our listeners with?
I'd say knowledge is power. The more we understand about the brain, the better equipped we are to support ourselves, our children, and our communities. This research gives us hope that we can identify vulnerabilities early on and intervene in ways that promote healthy brain development and well-being.
Beautifully said, and I think it's important to remember that this is an ongoing conversation. The ABCD study is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. As we continue to learn and explore, we'll gain a deeper understanding of the brain and its incredible power to shape our lives.
And that understanding will empower us to create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
I love that. Well, folks, there you have a deep dive into the fascinating world of brain science, substance use, and the potential for a brighter future.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and remember your brain is an amazing thing. Take care of it.